co-founder of the Jake and Gino podcast show, a major investor and educator and influencer in the multifamily investment space. He's also a great family man, and he has a lot of crossover with us here at Barth Calderon, asset protection, estate planning, business planning for property owners, because we are focused hugely on you if you own investment property and helping you to make sure you're protected. I had an incredible discussion with Gino, really fun. You're gonna wanna check it out. Let's go jump in.
Hi, everybody. This is Paul Hitchcock. Thank you for joining Wealth Protector TV. Really excited to have my friend and guest here, Gino Barbaro, who is the co-founder of Jake and Gino, multifamily investor, family man. Gino, you got everything going on. Welcome.
Paul, you called me a bon vivant. I didn't know what that meant. I thought you were cursing at me or something. I'm like, dude, I ain't that smart. So let me look that up. So I guess it's a compliment. So thank you, Paul. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's not a curse word, let me tell you for sure. Oh, man. Well, listen, Gino, I mean, obviously you and I got to know each other here, and you're doing so much. And, I'm with Barth Calderon, asset protection, estate planning, business planning firm. But I want to talk about starting out here, what you're doing, and get into kind of our synergy and things we're doing together.
I was fortunate back in 2009 to meet my current partner, Jake. I was in the restaurant business for years. Two great immigrant parents, but my problem was when the Great Recession hit long ago, and it seems like we're getting back to that point now.
Right.
I was stuck in that one restaurant, and I met Jake, and we fortunately started buying assets back in 2013.
You guys were working at the restaurant together?
He was a pharmaceutical rep. So I was the pizza guy and he was the drug rep. He was coming to the restaurant, getting catering orders and bringing them to doctor's offices. So he's the legal drug guy, right? So it sounds like he's a little bit of a bon vivant himself. But
exactly.
We got together and we both wanted to get into multifamily. We both wanted to buy assets and we both wanted to buy 100 doors. That was the goal for us. If we hit 100 units, man, we made it, and just thrilled. I mean, now we're at 1,600 units, but we bought that first deal in 2013 and we focused. We just continue to grow the portfolio. He moved down from New York to Knoxville, and over the last 10 years, we've continued to buy assets. We've created an education company called Jake and Gino. We do podcasts. We have mentorship platform. And for me, it's just been an amazing journey these past 10 years. I've learned a lot. I've met so many amazing people through Jake and Gino, and we've been able to, continue to grow our portfolio.
Yeah. And so obviously you and Jake are buddies in addition to business partners. And when you're talking to people, Gino, about getting into the space and what you do, I mean, we were just talking about a program you have coming up this weekend, but what is it you're focused on and how are you helping people? What do they need to know?
There's so much you need to know. I think the first thing is multifamily or real estate. It's an entrepreneurial venture. Jake and Gino, we say we create multifamily entrepreneurs. I think the biggest mistake people make when they get into real estate is, I'm going to buy a couple of houses and I'm going to maybe collect some money. No, it's an entrepreneurial venture, and it's great. Real estate adventure, when you're looking to, you want to scale. You want to replace yourself. You don't want to be the landlord. You don't want to be the person cleaning the toilets, putting down the carpeting. That's why you get into multifamily. You get into there so you can start hiring other people and start implementing systems. And lo and behold, before you know it, you've got 100 units, you've got a couple of property managers, and that's when the fun starts. And I think people have those limiting beliefs of, I can't get into multifamily because I don't have money. There's so many tools and strategies that you can learn to overcome that. Because when Jake and I started, we didn't have a ton of money either. We just had desire. And I think the education, we say education times action equals results. You can take a ton of education. I've had a ton of action. And if you don't put those two together, Paul, real quick, I want everyone to write this quote down. A person with money meets a person with experience. The person with the experience gets the money, and the person with the money gets the experience.
I love it. I love it.
And what I mean by that is, if you're not educated and you start throwing money, it doesn't matter how much money you have. It really, that is such a limiting belief. For me, you really need to understand what you're doing. You really need to take a deep dive and then find people who've done it. Success leaves clues, and that's how you start your journey.
Yeah, because you meet a lot of people, and certainly we've seen them where they just flounder in the property space and they get nailed, and a lot don't treat it like a business. I see that a lot of times where they don't put the pieces in place that every smart business owner would do. So they get their butt handed to them at some point down the road. You find that people getting in, which is why you're doing the education, they got to have all the pieces lined up.
And you'd said, what do we really teach? We teach buy right, manage right, and finance right. That is our proprietary 3-step framework. When you're looking at a deal, and I think this goes across about even buying a business, you need to buy the business properly. You need to finance it properly. That's why we call it wheelbarrow profits. It's in the shape of a wheelbarrow. Those are the two back legs. You're buying that asset properly, great. That leg is fixed. You're financing it properly. Bam, those two legs are done. The manage right of the business is the wheel. It's in constant motion. And most people buying real estate, they're focusing on, wow, I'm going to buy this deal. I'm going to finance it. They forget that it's a business and they need to manage it. And I think one more thing that I love to say about real estate, people have the misnomer of I'm making money in real estate when I buy. You're making money in the buy. Obviously, you're doing well in the buy. You need to buy it properly. You're going to cash flow, but you really make money in real estate on the exit. That is when you sell the asset or when you refinance it. That's when the big capital event occurs. You have that capital appreciation or that refinance. You repurpose that equity and you go into another deal. So that's something that I'd like to share with the listeners out there, because everyone's talking about passive income and cash flow, and we need all that, but you need to focus on your exit. And I think when you're building a business, same thing. We're always focusing on building that business to be able to exit that business, or at least to have it so all the systems are set up so that business is running properly and efficiently.
Could the exit be passing it along to your kids or something like that?
Absolutely.
That's
Great.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's more incumbent upon you. You're a financial steward and you're a steward of that business. So how do you pass it along? By not having that business rely solely upon you. And that's a great point that you make. At 1,600 units, obviously, that these assets are not incumbent upon me. Jake has got property managers. We have a COO. We have regionals now. I mean, it's just been a slow process, but I think that's the same thing with the business. Setting yourself up properly so the next generation can take over.
Yeah, no, very interesting comment. And the people you're working with, Gino, are they just all walks of life, people that you're counseling and teaching, from just onesies and twosies to people that want to just go gargantuan? Who are they?
That's a great question. What we've tried to do is we've tried to narrow it down. I mean, our students have closed over 60,000 units over the last 6 years. They've raised over $350 million. Right. That's over $4 billion in assets that they've closed.
Yeah.
And what we've seen, the students that have really excelled, there's three different, I guess, personas or avatars. The first ones are people who are in single families, fixing and flipping, doing the same thing, paying returns, having to go out. They're like, I see multifamily. I need to start buying assets that start creating income every month. The second type is, if you're a lawyer, you're a doctor, you're a small business owner, you're getting creamed by taxes. That multifamily thing looks really good. And the third type are people who are in multifamily, who've got deals, may have 10 units, may even have 500 units, but they're like, I need to scale and I need to start implementing systems. So those three types of people that really we work with that really excel. When you're looking at it from a beginner and beginner's mindset, you still want to jump into it. But sometimes I don't want to go out there and convince somebody that multifamily is the way to go, right? It's very hard to, it's almost like when you're dealing with estate planning, you're trying to tell somebody estate planning, you need it. If they're not ready for it, they're going to push Paul away and say, Paul's crazy, until the time comes where like, wow, Paul was right.
Yeah. Life happens, right? Life happens. And then they say, okay, I got to do something about it, which I want to get into that in a second.
Yes.
Because you had a good experience there. One more question I wanted to ask you is, how do people start out with you? You say, people seeing you for the first time, and I can't imagine they don't know you, you're everywhere, but if they do come in, how do they get into your ecosystem? What do you recommend?
What I would just say is just go to JAKEANDGINO.com. I mean, we have daily podcasts. We have a how-to. I do a podcast with my wife. It's called the Julie and Gino Show. That's like my favorite podcast is I get on, I tease her, but we talk about family relationships. We talk about spouses working together. I mean, creating impact and really enriching your life, because we're out there making money. We're out there doing all this stuff. But if you don't spend time with the family and if you don't grow, with your spouse, what's it worth? I mean,
not worth it.
It's so important. It is not. So just go to JAKEANDGINO.com. You'll get in there. You'll see the books we've written, the podcasts we've done, the webinars we host every month, and you'll just say, wow, these guys are doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah, because when I first met you, I was started to brag to you about my 4 kids, and you blew me away with your family. you just pushed me down. You have how many kids? What? You have what? 8, 9, 10, 6, 7?
6. I stopped at 6. So
no more. No mas. No, that's great. We're both family guys, and I think we bonded over that. Both love our families. So tell me about, obviously I'm at Barth Calderon. There's a lot of crossover with what we're doing. We work with a lot of property owners, speak at property association groups all over the country. asset protection, estate planning. Tell me your thoughts about, being an expert in the business yourself, how it relates to what we do at Barth Calderon.
Big shout out to Harry. I had him on the podcast. I had him on the 100-year show. So I think
Our
anybody.
founder, Harry
That's
Barth.
right. Yeah, Harry, go on the Jake and Gino channel, look up Harry Barth. You'll see the podcast we did with him. I actually sent the interview to my accountant, who's about 60 years old. Guy knows it all. My accountant. He's like, wow, that guy's really smart. He knows it all, because I know he knows it all. So Todd, if you're listening, big shout out to you. But really, I had an amazing conversation with him. I've actually had the experience of working with him over the last month, working with Harry. My mom needed some estate planning. It was a very painless process. My mom is in her 70s. She's never used a computer before. I actually sat next to her on Zoom, and it was great. I mean, my mom was like, you've never met him? You never shake his hands? No, Mom. I said, I got on a couple times. I've spoken to Harry. He's so professional. He knows exactly what he's talking about. Before we got on the call, everything was listed out. Mom, sit here. It was a 45-minute call. Got all the papers drawn up within a day, sent them out a week later, and we're in the process of notarizing everything and getting everything done. The best $2,000 I've spent in years, because I don't want to have the process of something happening to my mother, me going into probate, wasting months and months into that neverland. We're actually being proactive. And I think when we talk about the 100-year show, it's about responsibility. And all the listeners who are listening to this know that. To have a successful life, two things. You need to be responsible, take responsibility for all of your actions, and you need to have that long-term mindset. Set things up. Don't let things happen to you. I mean, Paul just said it. Don't be reactive. Be proactive in your life, and reaching out and having that conversation. Whether you're young and you're just starting out your family, you need to have that guardianship. Who's going to take care of your kids if something happens? At least leave a will. And if you're at an advanced age, you have some estate tax issues, that's a problem. And if you're starting out in multifamily, you need asset protection.
Right.
So, I mean, like, Harry's got it all. You can work on all of these different sectors. Don't wait. Start having that conversation, because you're going to look back 5 years from now and go, I've created some nice assets here. What do I need to do? You don't want to get to that point where you're running with a chicken without a head. Start the conversation today and see where you are. And I will guarantee you, Harry and his team, they will have a way to help you out wherever you are in your life right now.
Well, yeah. Well, Gino, you're very kind to say those things. Harry's a great guy. And yeah, it's interesting you mentioned estate planning, asset protection, because the way we define it is the estate planning is going to happen to all of us no matter what, right? I mean, it's an inevitable in life, and you either make the decision to take control of it yourself, or you let the government do it. And so we tell people estate planning, think of it as you're the director of your own play, and on the stage are your family members you love, your kids, your assets. You're the director. You can direct how your life play is going to turn out, or you can walk away and let the government do it. Nobody wants the government to step in. So estate planning is that. Take control of it. The asset protection, we say, okay, is it going to happen to you? Maybe, maybe not. This is the random nature of life, right? Life coming at you, twists and turns, and it is being prepared when the seas are calm. Get organized with your property before life throws you a curveball, because if it happens and you don't have your planning in place, we see people lose their properties all the time, all across the country, because they get nailed. They're not ready for it. Properties do get taken away. And so anyways, it's a great comment.
And when you work with Harry, he's been doing it for 50 years.
Yeah.
The quote that really blew me away was 67% of people in this country don't have an estate plan.
Yeah.
But what Harry basically said to me is, if you don't have an estate plan, you still have an estate plan. It's just with the state. It's not your plan. They're going to take, and when that hit me, I was like, I need to start sharing this with the Jake and Gino community. They may not want to hear it. It may not be about real estate, but what I want the whole community of Jake and Gino is really to think about long-termism. And hey, I'm making this money right now. How am I going to be a steward of my money? And how am I going to set up my estate? How am I going to set up my statement of purpose? And that will help you when you're buying real estate. Are you going to buy real estate for short-term and flip? Or are you going to be a legacy holder? You're not going to buy older assets. You're going to buy newer assets. So all of these things you need to start thinking about. And like I said, you don't want to be caught. One day something happens to you, your spouse, you're not there anymore. Did you leave any kind of directive for the next generation?
Totally. Love it. Yeah. Great information, Gino. So awesome. I want to tell everybody that's listening, wherever you're listening to this, because we stream this everywhere. This is LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. It's out there, either up here, down here, somewhere around here is the contact information for both Gino, myself, to get connected with both of us on our end. We always offer a complimentary planning assessment for anybody, any property owner that's wondering if they've got their planning in place or what's going on, asset protection, estate planning. Get connected to us. We'll get you with Harry one-on-one. Same with Gino. Get connected to Jake and Gino. You'll love it. Gino, awesome stuff. I'm going to have you back. Thanks so much.
From one bon vivant to another, I enjoyed it, bro. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. We'll see you next time.
Take care.
All right.